I love road trips more than just about anything. Things to see and memories to be made. And when I can visit a roadside attraction that's completely free, that's twice as good. In the case of southern Indiana, there are plenty of places like this, all worthy of a visit and a picture for posterity. Starting at New Harmony and ending up at Vivi, this is a massive road trip, well over 300 miles. So grab a large drink, your favorite snack, and let's get going. Traveling to New Harmony, we find a labyrinth, a maze-like structure constructed of shrubs. It was built around 1820 by the Rappites. They were a religious group that created this for meditation and deep reflection. But as a group that also believed in celibacy, they didn't last nearly as long as the labyrinth, which is well over 200 years old. Just across town, we find the roofless church. Completed in 1960, it is exactly what it sounds like, a place to worship without a roof. Great in summer, spring, and fall, not so much during a blizzard. The most impressive structure is what looks like a parachute. It's literally open year-round. If you have boots and don't mind a little mud, the Twin Swamps Nature Preserve is an awesome, unusual destination. Located on the outskirts of Mount Vernon, it's a rare stand of tropical bald cypress trees. If you didn't know better, you'd think this was the Florida Everglades. It has all the charm without a single alligator, we think. But if you hear banjos, I'd still make a run for it. Heading east along the river to downtown Mount Vernon are gigantic swings. They are big enough to seat an entire family. That, or me, and about 6 years of road trip snacks. Located along Highway 41 at Evansville is a 35-foot tall Santa Claus statue. Built in 1974, it's believed to be the second tallest in the United States. The only taller is at North Pole, Alaska, and is 42 feet tall, a mere 7-foot difference. But if you had a 35-foot tall Santa in your front yard, you'd still have bragging rights, and probably a letter from the Homeowners Association. Further southeast is the town of Troy and the Christ of the Ohio statue. Completed in 1956, it is massive. It stands 11 feet tall and weighs in at 6,200 pounds. and the view up here really is heavenly. Continuing east on 66 to Cannleton is Lafayette Spring, where early pioneers came for a drink of water, including a 7-year-old Abraham Lincoln. But in 1825, the Marquis de Lafayette, a Revolutionary War hero and like a son to George Washington, was shipwrecked here. People that knew about the great commander, Lafayette, came down to shake his hand, and it was a big deal. Like meeting your favorite Hollywood actor, it was unforgettable. But if you drink the water, you'll get an unforgettable colon cleansing. I would not recommend. Just down the road on 66, and driving up a steep hill, we find a gigantic cross. In fact, it's the world's largest Celtic cross, sculpted from a single piece of stone. It took one man 23 months to chip this from a 20-foot tall boulder, which just goes to show what can be done when you shut off Netflix. Traveling north to Jasper, we find a giant popcorn box. Built as an advertisement for the Jasper Gift Basket and Popcorn Company, it is 17 feet tall. You know you want your picture in front of it. Also in Jasper is the Geo Grotto, built in the 1960s. Based on the Grotto of Lourdes in France, it's composed of thousands of geodes. These came from a local creek and later from Lawrence County, Indiana. It took one priest and many volunteers 10 years to complete. And no, they didn't have YouTube or Netflix back then. Traveling east past Paluka Lake, we find an enormous wooden Bigfoot, minding his own business, doing a little fishing. Located at the French Lick Cabins at Paluka Lake Village, it's a whopping 25 feet tall. Even more amazing is that 9 carvers put it together in just 5 days. Bigfoot is taking it easy, just chilling on the pier. But just like me, he needs to cut back on the snacks. Continuing north, we find the historic West Baden Resort. When the hotel was completed in 1902, well over 100 years ago, it had the largest dome in the world at 200 feet across. That record remained until 1913. It was still the largest dome in the United States until 1955. It is decorated beautifully around Christmas. It costs nothing to take a look inside, but I understand there's a fine for singing show tunes. You know who you are. A short drive west on 150 takes us to Shoals, Indiana, in an ancient stone called the Jug Rock. Next to the highway, in the ditch, is a sandstone formation. Pioneers thought it looked like a jug with a stopper on top, and the name stuck. This monster of a rock is 60 feet tall and the largest freestanding table rock east of the Mississippi River. And as a fun fact, the Jug Rock is the Shoals High School mascot. And the kids call themselves Jug Rocks. And as we say in Indiana, well, why not? Traveling towards the Trinity Springs area, we find an amazing place called Mustering Elm Park. As the story goes, when young men were signing up to be soldiers in the Civil War, they carved their names in the rock wall. These are over 150 years old. At one time, this was a big deal mineral springs resort area. And hotels popped up everywhere. While the hotels are now gone, the spring and the smell of rotten eggs remains. The strong odor is due to a high amount of sulfur in the water. Some say it will cure whatever ails you, from aching feet to relieving constipation. You go right ahead and take a drink. I'll watch. Traveling southeast to Orange County is the Wesley Chapel Gulf, a part of the mysterious Lost River. Basically, it's where a cave ceiling has caved in, the size of a football stadium, and the Lost River races through it, from one cave to the next. It does require a walk in the woods and can be very muddy. This is what it looks like during a dry period, a cave to the south and about 25 feet below it. And here it is flooding and completely filled to the cave. At high water, it makes a very ominous and disconcerting sucking noise, making you realize if you fall in, you'll never be seen again. It's both an amazing and scary place. It is nothing to joke about. Just down the road, and also part of the Lost River, is the Orangeville Rise. While it looks like an ordinary pond, it goes down 10 stories deep and travels over 20 plus miles. It has never been fully explored. And when it floods, everyone downstream does too. But on a brighter, less ominous note, we travel north to Oolitic, where a cartoon character stands next to the town hall. While not well known today, Joe Paluka was a hugely popular comic strip character in the 1930s and 1940s. It was carried in over 900 newspapers. So why not build a 10-foot tall, 20,000-pound limestone statue? Exactly. And yes, you need to take your picture beside it. Traveling north of Olytic, we arrive at an old country cemetery, but it's not the cemetery, but what's behind it that's very interesting. This is the Empire Quarry Hole. You've heard of the Empire State Building in New York. The building is 102 stories and 1,250 foot tall at the roof. The exterior is completely covered with limestone that came from this hole in the ground. Realize that you are mere inches from a fatal fall. If you go, do keep a safe distance. Traveling east to Medora is the Madura Brick Factory. When I first saw it, I had no idea what it was. Peeking inside, this is where thousands of bricks were baked at a time. They were used to build universities, government buildings, and other grand structures. Now that it's empty, the dome amplifies even a whisper to uncomfortable levels. The 10-year-old inside of you will think of something to say. Just outside of town is the Medora Cover Bridge. This thing is simply massive. The roof is 461 feet long, making it the longest historic covered bridge in the United States. Built in 1875, at the cost of just over $18,000, it has lasted nearly 150 years. Traveling way south to New Salisbury, there's a box along Old Highway 64. One that many people overlook as they keep their eyes on the road. This is the Man in the Box, and it's been here since 1968. The wooden statue is of Paul Conrad, owner of Conrad's Transmission. And if you ask me, it's one incredible advertisement. Paul once held a transmission by his side, but currently holds only a wrench. After 55 years, he deserves a break like anyone else. But perhaps no southern Indiana roadside attraction is more famous than the Shoe Tree, located south of Milltown. Make that the world-famous Shoe Tree. It all started back in the 1960s when two brothers got new shoes. They decided to tie their old shoes together and wing them up into the branches. Before long, everybody was doing it, and as they say, things got a little out of hand. While many shoes are clearly used up, some don't look so bad. And some are pretty standout. Today, it's not just one shoe tree, but many shoe trees, where people have missed. Even people from other countries have came here to participate in this Hoosier tradition. For many, it's become a family rite of passage, with a lot of soul. Traveling southeast to Corydon is the Constitution Elm. Way back in 1816, well before the days of air conditioning, the good people of Indiana were writing the state's constitution, and it was hot in that building. They came outside, sat beneath the elm tree, and finished their work. Years later, the tree died, but someone said, "This tree is too special for just firewood." They cut off all the branches, coated the trunk with tar, and put a large brick enclosure around it, a shrine. And as we say in Indiana, well, why not? East of Corydon is New Albany, and a truly remarkable attraction. Hidden in the basement of the New Albany Floyd County Free Public Library is something beyond awesome. Known simply as the Yenowine Exhibit, it's a huge set of dioramas, and they're all animated. Merle Yenowine took up wood carving as a hobby, making dioramas for Christmas. Over the years, he added motors and belts, animating hundreds of tiny dolls, animals, and other objects. Simply push any of the buttons to get the party started. Merle's wife made all the clothes for these figurines. It was quite the couple's project. All told, there were 60 dioramas. While many parts were sold to collectors, the section detailing his life at Georgetown was sold to the library. This again answers the question, what did people do before television and internet? Right next door to New Albany, Clarksville, Indiana has something big. Very big. In fact, the Colgate Clock was once the second largest in the entire world. The clock face is a massive 40 feet across. The celebrated Big Ben in London is only 23 feet. While there are now several bigger clocks around the world, the folks in Louisville can still look across the river and know what time it is. Also in Clarksville, one of the newest roadside attractions is the Rosie the Riveter statue. It depicts Rose Will Monroe. During World War II, Rose, a widowed mother of two, worked as a riveter for B-24 airplanes. Her likeness was used in war bond advertisements, and a song called Rosie the Riveter was written. After the war, she moved to Clarksville, got remarried, ran a series of businesses, and even learned to fly an airplane. And today, you can take your picture next to this can-do icon. While all these attractions are fun, the Big Four Bridge at Jeffersonville is likely the most dramatic. Once a railroad bridge, it was converted to pedestrian traffic. This allows people to walk from Louisville and Jeffersonville and back again. But that's only the start. At night, the bridge does a free light show that is nothing short of a disco. All the grounds on the Indiana side have all kinds of artwork that lights up in spectacular ways. Disco is in fact not dead. It's alive and well at the Big Four Bridge. You've seen porta potties of different varieties, but you've probably never seen one like this one at Vivi. Located on the courthouse grounds, this historic facility was built to accommodate 4 people. I promised myself I wouldn't use any 10-year-old humor on this one. After all, that would be a crappy thing to do. Just outside downtown Vivi is one of the largest rubber duckies I've ever seen. It may or may not be the largest in the world. But for sure, it's about as big as my Nissan Sentra. It is totally picture-worthy. Near the Markland Dam is a very large wine barrel built to commemorate Vivi's Swiss wine heritage. Sitting on top of the hill, it's a little tough to determine scale. But up close and personal, this thing is a monster. You might ask yourself, why did Vivi need a huge wine barrel? And to that we say, why not? These are just 30 of the many free Southern Indiana roadside attractions. Believe me, there are many more. Driving around, finding silly things, and taking pictures is an Indiana tradition passed down from generation to generation. For the cost of a tank of gas and a few snacks along the road, it returns something a lot more valuable. It provides priceless memories that will stay with you long after the day is done. And unlike anything you can buy, no one can ever take them away from you. Maybe it's time for a road trip.